When we push our bodies to their limits, when we train in the scorching heat, when we rise before dawn to chase our dreams, are we simply building muscles? Or are we unknowingly practicing the ancient art of Tapasya, the spiritual discipline that transforms not just our bodies, but our very souls? Welcome to GitaSahasram. Meet Priya, a 26-year-old software engineer from Bangalore. Like many young professionals, she lived in a cycle of deadlines, stress and endless screen time. Her body ached from long hours at her desk, her mind raced with worries about project deliveries, and her spirit felt disconnected from any deeper purpose. One evening, scrolling through social media, Priya stumbled upon a post about the Mumbai Marathon. Something stirred within her heart. What if I could run 42 kilometers, she wondered. The very thought seemed impossible, but it planted a seed of curiosity in her mind. The next morning, Priya laced up old sneakers and stepped out for her first run. Within 5 minutes, she was breathless and defeated. "This is impossible," she gasped, sitting on a park bench. But as she sat there, watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant colors, something ancient whispered to her soul. That evening, Priya visited her grandmother, Amma, who had always been her source of wisdom. "Amma, I want to run a marathon, but I feel so weak," she confessed. The elderly woman's eyes twinkled with understanding. "Beta, let me tell you about Tapasya," she said gently. Tapasya, Amma explained, comes from the Sanskrit word tapa, meaning to burn or generate heat. It is the practice of spiritual discipline through physical and mental austerity. Our ancient rishis knew that when we willingly embrace discomfort, we purify not just our bodies, but our minds and souls. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks of 3 types of tapasya: tapasya of the body, tapasya of speech, and tapasya of mind. When you run, Beta, you are practicing tapasya of the body. Every step that challenges you is burning away your limitations. Inspired by her grandmother's words, Priya began her training with a new understanding. Each morning at 5 a.m., she would rise and run. The first weeks were torture, her legs screamed, her lungs burned, and her mind begged her to quit. But she remembered Amma's words, "This is the fire of Tapasya, purifying you." Week by week, something remarkable happened. The girl who once couldn't run for 5 minutes was now running for 30 minutes without stopping. But more than her physical transformation, Priya noticed changes in her mind. The anxiety that once plagued her at work began to fade. The meditation of her rhythmic breathing had become her moving prayer. During a particularly challenging 20-kilometer training run, Priya found herself remembering the Upanishads. "The self is neither born nor does it die," she whispered to herself as her body wanted to give up. She realized that the real marathon was not about covering distance, it was about discovering the unshakable spirit within. Her colleagues noticed the change too. "Priya, you seem so calm these days," her manager observed. "Even during the toughest project deadlines, you maintain such composure." Priya smiled, knowing that her morning tapasya was teaching her the art of remaining centered in the storm of life. As the marathon day approached, Priya felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. The night before the race, she sat in meditation, remembering her grandmother's teachings. "The goal is not to win," she told herself. "The goal is to offer this run as a sacrifice, as the ancient texts teach us about selfless action." At the starting line, surrounded by thousands of runners, Priya felt the collective energy of all those who had committed to this journey of self-discovery. As the gun fired and the crowd surged forward, she began her run with a prayer, "May this tapasya purify my heart and strengthen my spirit." The first 21 kilometers felt like a celebration. Priya's training had prepared her well, and she maintained a steady pace. But as she crossed the halfway mark, the real test began. Her legs grew heavy, her breathing became labored, and doubt crept into her mind. "Why am I doing this?" she wondered. At kilometer 35, Priya hit what runners call the wall. Her body screamed for her to stop, to give up, to quit. Tears mixed with sweat on her face. But in that moment of deepest challenge, she heard her grandmother's voice echoing in her mind, "This is where real tapasya begins, beta. When everything in you wants to quit, but you continue with faith." In that moment of surrender, something miraculous happened. Priya felt a presence larger than herself carrying her forward. Her breathing deepened, her stride found rhythm again, and she experienced what the ancient texts call sahaja, the effortless flow that comes when the ego dissolves and the divine takes over. The final 7 kilometers became a moving meditation. Each step was an offering, each breath a prayer. Priya understood now what Krishna meant when he spoke of karma yoga, action without attachment to results. She was no longer running to prove anything to anyone. She was running in celebration of the indomitable human spirit. As Priya crossed the finish line, she collapsed to her knees, overwhelmed not by exhaustion but by gratitude. She had completed her first marathon, but more importantly, she had discovered the truth the ancient rishis knew, that our greatest limitations exist only in our minds, and through disciplined practice, we can transcend them. Months later, Priya's life had transformed completely. She had found her calling in coaching other women to discover their own strength through running. Her apartment had become a gathering place for what she called Tapasya runners, women who understood that every training run was a spiritual practice. During one of these gatherings, a young woman named Kavya approached Priya. "I've never run before," she said nervously. "I don't think I can do this." Priya smiled, remembering her own first day. The ancient texts tell us that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Are you ready to take that step? As they began their first run together, Priya shared the wisdom that had transformed her own life. Running is not about competing with others. It's about having a conversation with your own soul. Every step is a question. How far are you willing to go? How much are you willing to endure? How deeply do you trust in your own strength? That evening, Priya visited her grandmother again. "Amma, I think I finally understand what you taught me about tapasya," she said. "It's not about punishing the body. It's about discovering that we are so much more than what we think we are. It's about finding the divine strength that lies dormant within us." Her grandmother nodded with tears of joy in her eyes. "Beta, you have learned what the Upanishads teach us, that the self is neither the body nor the mind, but something far greater. Through your tapasya, you have touched that immortal part of yourself. This is the real victory." Today, Priya runs not because she has to, but because she loves to. Every morning, as she laces up her running shoes, she remembers that she is about to engage in an ancient practice, the practice of tapasya. She knows that with each step, she is not just training her body, but nurturing her soul. Her life has become a testament to the ancient wisdom that when we willingly embrace challenge and discipline, we discover reserves of strength we never knew existed. She has learned that the most profound spiritual experiences don't always happen in temples or ashrams, but sometimes on the roads we run, in the sweat we shed, and in the limits we transcend. As we follow Priya's journey, we are reminded that the path to self-discovery is not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. The ancient rishis knew what modern science is now proving, that physical discipline and mental strength are intimately connected. When we train our bodies, we also train our minds to be resilient, focused, and peaceful. Whether your marathon is running 42 kilometers, starting a new career, raising a family, or simply getting through each day with grace and courage, remember Priya's story. Remember that within you lies the same divine strength that has carried countless souls through their greatest challenges. The next time you face a challenge that seems impossible, remember the ancient practice of Tapasya. Remember that every moment of conscious effort, every choice to push through discomfort, every decision to keep going when you want to quit, is a sacred act of self-discovery. As the sun sets on Priya's story, we are left with this profound truth: the greatest distance we can ever travel is not from one place to another, but from who we think we are to who we truly are. And sometimes, that journey of self-discovery begins with a single step, a single breath, a single moment of courage to begin. Hare Krishna.